This is the Welcome to Humanity podcast with thought leader and transformative psychiatrist, Dr. Fred Moss. This show focuses on the betterment of humanity on a global scale. Each episode will leave you enlightened, inspired, and ready to make an impact in your world. Welcome to the show. Welcome to your life. Welcome to humanity. Here's Dr. Fred.
Hello again. Welcome to Humanity listeners. This is Dr. Fred. And today I have with me just a guest among guests, actually. I'm going to say a little bit about my guest, Mitch Jackson. And Mitch and I met a couple years ago. And frankly, Mitch and I have never actually been in the same, I think this is true, right, Mitch? That we've never actually been in the same room together, never actually shook hands. And the opportunity that we have been for each other comes mostly from our virtual connections and our network of conversations that interject and intersect with each other. So Mitch Jackson for me, is someone who represents the highest honor of the legal system and of being a man and of being a friend. I've been able to watch him and be with him and learn from him over the last couple of years in ways that he doesn't even know that I've been doing. And so to have him as a guest, to invite Mitch Jackson to be a guest on my podcast and to have him agree is among let's put it this way. It's a deep honor, a deep privilege to have you with us today, Mitch Jackson. Thanks for being here, Mitch. Really, really great.
Dr. Fred, you've really raised the bar pretty high. I'm afraid to say anything now. Thank you very, very much. You know, it's interesting because we've never met in real life, but we have appeared on live video shows together. We have chatted over the phone. I feel like I've met you more than many people who live on my street. Mm-hmm. So this is an interesting time to be alive, especially with digital, and it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you for the very kind introduction. I appreciate it.
Well, kind and honest, and you're welcome. And you're right. There is something about the intimacy that we've developed without ever even without ever being in the same room as each other. That is a testament to the times that we're living in, because both of us are up to making a difference. We're just driven in some ways to make a difference and to have fun doing it, to have it be useful, to be a contribution. And I think that's one of the things that we share with each other. So it's really, really a deep pleasure to have you here. So let's get into the conversation that I'm sure our listeners are waiting for, which is the opportunity to learn a little bit more about who you are. And so I'm just going to open up. As I told you beforehand, we're going to have open-ended questions here and kind of lead you down the pathway of exploring with me and you and the listeners, like what it is that you're up to. So here comes the first question, Mitch. Are you ready?
I think I'm ready. This sounds like fun. You know, you got to be careful about asking an attorney an open-ended question because you may only get one question in during the entire podcast episode. But what I'm going to do, Dr. Fred, is I'm going to keep my answers short and to the point to allow you to follow up. But yes, bring it on. Let's do this.
Okay. Just to let you know, I only planned one question because I knew that you were an attorney. So I was just going to ask the question and then just step aside, go eat some breakfast and come back when you're done.
I would never do that to you.
As you know, I meet lots of incredible people who are up to really big things in the world. Mitch Jackson is no exception. Each and every one of us, we're all dealing with something, right? No matter whether we're tackling some of the larger problems in the world or seemingly tiny ones, we still face challenges internally and externally. So as a psychiatrist for many years, I've worked with all kinds of people from all walks of life. I've worked with more people than I can count from various backgrounds, dealing with more issues than you can imagine of all sizes and shapes. So naturally, over time, I developed a number of ways to assist others in gaining a new sense of freedom and empowerment. I've now pulled back the curtain on one of these methodologies, and I'm publicly revealing the process and associated mindset that contributes to using this particular method with maximum effectiveness. It's all laid out in my new book called Creative 8, and you can pick it up on Amazon.com in either Kindle or paperback format. As a listener to the Welcome to Humanity podcast, I'd like to offer you a completely free copy in audiobook format. Just go to welcometohumanity.net/creative and download your free audiobook today. I look forward to hearing about your Creative 8 breakthrough. Now, let's get back to our conversation with Mitch Jackson. So here we go, Mitch. So Mitch, who are you? Really? Like, who are you? Who are you in the world? And
Sure.
what matters to you? Talk to us.
I am a husband. I am a proud father. I am someone that puts a lot of emphasis and importance in what's happening in my local, national, and global communities. And I also happen to be a trial lawyer for the last 34 years. I met my wife in law school. We've been married for 33 years now. We have 2 kids, 25 and 20. That's my priority. And everything else comes after that. And I think that's what's allowed me to have the career that I've had and get over the speed bumps in life that you and I, it's interesting. You and I have met about a year ago, I think it was. And it was just, before. There's a lot going on in politics. There's a lot going on with health and safety with COVID-19, which is when we're recording this podcast episode. Interesting time to meet someone, right? With everything else going on in the world. So you've seen a certain side of me on social where that's who I am. I'm talking about things that are important to me. I'm listening and trying to learn from others. And I always put, Mike the Milkman, who's my father-in-law, he was a milkman, Fred, for about 20 years. He started off loading milk crates on the back of a milk truck. And when I met him 20 years later and asked him for permission to marry his middle daughter, Mike owned a dairy distributorship and retired at 52. One of the most successful guys I've ever met and one of the wisest. And he said, Mitch, just do 3 things. Mike the Milkman always delivers. And it's because I keep these 3 things in priority. Number 1, promise me you'll always take care of your physical and mental health, because if you don't, it's going to be challenging for you to be of any help to my daughter, your kids someday, to your clients. Number 2, take care of your family. Take care of my daughter, our grandkids someday. Obviously, we didn't have kids when we got married. And number 3, then take care of your business or profession or occupation. Keep things in that order, and you're going to have a long, successful, relatively stress-free and happy career. And he was right. So health first, family second, and career third. And so that's what I try to reflect, Dr. Fred, on social media. And I've added a 4th element that my 25-year-old daughter, who is a first-year lawyer at Shepherd Mullen, reminds me of daily. And that is to listen more, to pay attention to what's going on, to practice active listening. I'm someone that likes to share my opinion, and I need to learn how to listen better, especially online. So that's me. That's what I'm about, at least in 2020. Changes every year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for really the fresh and raw and vulnerable, really the vulnerable declaration of who you are. I love, people would say, we have this tendency to, like people ask, well, who is this Dr. Fred? And someone might say, oh, he's a psychiatrist, or who is Mitch Jackson? Oh, he's a trial attorney. And it's funny because it's like I acquired my psychiatry, credentials over time, almost on the side of being the human that I am. It's just something that I buzzed through and then picked up a piece of paper there, and then they called me a psychiatrist, and then that's really what took place.
Yeah.
And it seems like for you, it's like, oh yeah, and by the way, I happen to be a trial attorney. It's almost like, I wouldn't call it apologetic, but it's almost like parenthetical. It's like on the backside of being a husband, a father, a man, a community, interested in community issues. And I take care of my health. I take care of my mental health. I take care of my, my family and friends. And, oh yeah, I'm a trial attorney on top of that. So, and that's who you get a lot of your traction on social media is as a trial attorney. Yes. I mean, that's why does someone latch on to Mitch Jackson?
So here's the thing. What I just shared with you, as you know, it's from the heart. And I don't know too many lawyers that have been practicing 10 years, much less 30 plus years, who are excited about getting up in the morning and doing what they're doing. Because when you think about it, all of our clients have problems, pretty big problems, pretty major issues in their life, whether they caused it or someone else is pointing the finger at them. And because I have things in this order and it's legitimate, it's from the heart, it's not bullshit, Dr. Fred. In other words, that's the way I walk my talk. It's allowed me to keep things in perspective. You asked me a question and I kind of went sideways on you. But all I was going to say is on social media, what I found is every once in a while, yes, I do talk about being a trial lawyer in the practice, but I think what's allowed me to build a brand on social media and connect with people instead of one-on-one across from my desk, like you and I see our clients and patients, it's more like 1 to 100 or 1 to 1,000 because of digital. It's because I share my human side. It's because I've kind of opened the door and I put another welcome mat out. And while the kids were growing up, live videos from the soccer fields. When I was riding and racing motocross, video and pictures from the motocross track. When I'm out now paddle boarding, between you and I, Dr. Fred, it doesn't hurt as much when I fall off into the water as when I'm trying to do a triple down in Elsinore. Yeah. I've got the GoPro on and maybe I'm talking about something I learned from a juror during jury selection, something that he or she told me while we're selecting a jury that I then took back and instantly applied to the case to get the results that my client was looking to achieve. It's about, I think, sharing and showing your human side. And when you do this, especially on social media, and this is what good trial lawyers do in the courtroom. It's not like what you see on TV. It's about being the person in the courtroom who the jury can relate to, who they build rapport with, you build rapport with them. And when something happens in the courtroom, they look at you as that person who's got the compass and can help everyone navigate through that issue, through that objection. If you can create an environment where they know, like, and trust you, then everything else falls into place. And so what I found early in my career, and look, I'm the first one from my family to become, in my immediate family, to become a professional. My folks didn't graduate from college. Certainly the first lawyer in the family. So I had to figure this stuff out as the years went by. The first 5 years of practice, Dr. Fred, I was like every other lawyer in town. The lawyers that I was working with and getting referrals from, I thought I needed to be like them. And it felt fake. It didn't feel real. I was getting decent results, but I wasn't comfortable with how I was going about it. It was too structured, too rigid. Once I gave myself permission to be human and let people know that, there's other things going on in life, or if I'm in court, just not use big words and just come across and actually be that person sitting next to the juror. I'm like their next door neighbor. That is who I am. And once I gave myself permission to do that in court, everything else just fell into place. It allowed me to stand out, top of mind, awareness, and get the results that we're looking for our clients. So I think for professionals and business owners out there, give yourself a break, let your guard down and just be human, and people will connect with you. People will want to do business with you, and people will want to step up and help you when you or your patient or client needs help. So that's kind of the journey that, I took and I've watched and I've experienced. And now that's what you see me sharing on social media is I want all the professionals and lawyers out there to be strategically transparent, share what they're comfortable with sharing, understanding family privacy rights, understanding all the other dynamics that come into what I'm talking about.
Sure.
But, let your hair down a little bit and share that with the world. And I think the world would be a better place if everyone did that.
Well, it's brilliant, Mitch. And I'm going to tell you a couple things that come to mind as you speak. Number one, I resonate with it completely. And when I started to be successful, it's no coincidence that it coincides with when I sort of stopped being the kind of doctor that I saw myself as needing to be in order to be successful. Like I started being me first and then being the healer that I found myself to be. And so, it's really great to sit around with people and to be Fred Moss, like vulnerable human man with concerns and with commitments, just like anybody else. And to have that be where the access is with my patients or with my clients. And it seems like things skyrocketed with my clients when I began to like you say, give myself a break and leave myself room to just be human.
Was there a moment, Dr. Fred, where this crystallized for you? Where is there something? Do you mind sharing it?
No, I don't mind at all. I think
I'm
it's
just
great.
curious.
In 2006, there was a couple things that happened, and there was challenges from the medical board in 2006 from the Ohio Medical Board, and the Ohio Medical Board had taken into consideration. They kind of put me on the front edge to get evaluated for something that had happened in 2002. I had a driving under the influence charge in 2002, a conviction, and I have been clean and sober, by the way, since September 21st, 2002.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you. And in 2006, there was a challenge, and it was really an opportunity to not spin doctor my defense, but to actually cut down to the core of what it is. Who is this Fred Moss after all? Like, who have I been pretending to be, but who am I really?
Bingo.
And who am I really? Who am I really? Who am I? No kidding. What's really here? And I don't know what the outcome's going to be of the whole, what, we'll call it interrogation or investigation or whatever. I had no idea what the outcome was going to be, but it didn't really matter because it was more an exploration as to who is Fred Moss. And I was asking myself that rather than the graduate of Northwestern University or even the kind of father or kind of man that my neighbors were being. Even in that area, I was kind of like emulating my next door neighbor, or emulating the doctor over there, or the successful psychiatrist over there, or the husband over there, or the father over there. Yeah. And there was really an opportunity to get, okay, in some ways, Mitch, I think we talked about this in our previous conversations. There was an opportunity to leave myself some room to fall in love with me. Like to actually get that I'm really okay. Like this is really what it means to be me. I have areas of life where I'm less effective than others. I have vulnerable areas. I have areas where I know nothing. I have areas where I'm an expert. I have areas where I'm, superpowered. And really getting that that's what this existence about is at the heart of the essence, really, of what Welcome to Humanity has now become as my brand.
It's interesting how, I don't know about you, but it sounds like you're, similar journeys. The older we get as human beings and the more we reflect upon what's happened in our lives, opportunities, disappointments, I think the wiser we get. And what's interesting for me is I grew up on a ranch in Tucson, and this relates to what you just said. And we had guests coming in from all over the world. A lot of well-known celebrities would come and stay for a week and play cowboy, ride horses and everything else. But what I noticed is what I saw of them on television or in a movie, or people like John Wayne, Walt Disney were guests back in the day. They weren't anything like that in real life.
Right.
Okay. And so when I started my practice here in Southern California, in Orange County, there are a lot of very well-known, well-to-do people here in Orange County, a lot of celebrities, a lot of business executives. What I started noticing over the first 10 years of practice as these people were being referred to my firm, because we carved out a pretty successful litigation niche early on, which resulted in referrals. What I noticed is everybody sitting across my desk, no matter what you read about in the paper, no matter what you saw them doing on television, they're just like you and me. I mean, most of them were overextended financially. Their personal lives were upside down. It was just a confirming Orange County eye-opener of what I grew up watching back in Tucson on the ranch.
Yes.
And it kind of gave me permission, like you just said, okay, don't be so hard on yourself. Take a step back. You only have one shot at life. Why don't you just try being yourself, try to improve each and every day, learn something new each day. It's the constant and never-ending improvement type of mentality. And have empathy for other people, which has been really difficult right now with politics and with COVID-19, and so who are people voting for? Why are people looking the other way when things are going on? When it comes to health and safety, why aren't we all in this together? I have some pretty specific views on all the above, if you follow me online. But I also have empathy for why do people think, feel, and do the things that they do. What's their background? It's more, up your up your line of profession as to what makes people tick. Why do they do what they do? Why do they believe what they do? And it fascinates me.
Yeah.
And so I try to be hard on issues, but kind to people. I'll let people know what I think about a particular issue, whether it's business, digital, politics, health and safety. But I try to, and I make mistakes every now and then, but I try to be kind to people. And I think there's a difference between going into court and just tearing an adverse witness apart on cross-examination from the witness stand, as opposed to getting them to say what you want them to say in front of the jury. And actually, while you're doing it, the jury's thinking to themselves, Mr. Jackson could really be throwing right hooks, but he's getting the information that he needs, and he's showing empathy and respect for the juror, for the witness. And I think that goes a long ways, both in the courtroom, in the business world, and on social media. But it's a daily battle, Dr. Fred. It's a daily battle because of everything that's going on.
Yes. Thank you for that. There's this, when you speak to John Wayne and Walt Disney and these celebrities visiting you when you were a child, and you just kind of seeing behind the curtain that they didn't look anything like what they were presented as in their media of TV and movies. And these were just humans being humans. And you start seeing, I think for me, what I started seeing, and this is where, again, Welcome to Humanity, I think, gets its roots, Mitch. And maybe this is our kindred spirit again, which is the same holds true with that unknown homeless guy on the corner of Main Street. Like, once you start getting past whatever I thought he should be like, because he looks like that, and I have a conversation with him, I start seeing that there's a real human there. There's a real human there hiding behind the facade that I gave him. And there's somebody there who's really just taking the next step through life a whole lot like me. And whether he's on a pulpit in the corner of, 4th and Main, evangelically speaking out, or whether or not he's a movie star, or whether or not he's, successful, or my next door neighbor, there starts to be a distillation of all of us doing approximately the same thing, trying to make sense of a world that doesn't make it easy to make sense of it. And for me, the distance between, I've never met John Wayne or Walt Disney, but I have met some celebrities, and the distance between them and this so-called unknown dude on the corner isn't very far, actually. They're quite the same. And that's why I was able to, or to me, that's what it was like, going back to my youth and really getting, wow, there's a humanity here that we all share. And if I can expose mine, if I can just land on mine unapologetically, then the impact I make on others becomes pronounced, becomes amplified in that setting. And I get to make a difference. I get to be my brand. I get to actually be Welcome to Humanity. I get to actually have these kind of conversations with people like you, because there's something we're doing here which has stripped away the facades that were given to us to abuse if we wanted to, and which don't serve a very high means anyways. And so thank you for being you, and to having, you have access to being whatever level of jerk you want to be, Mitch. I mean, it's here for you. You have the profession that allows for you to be a complete and total jerk, and then so-called be successful on that.
Well, so let's talk about that for just a second. And it's interesting when you look at other people. We're all brothers and sisters, and have parents and have kids, and it's tough because there's so much going on, daily, locally, nationally, and globally. Like you said, you pull up to that street corner and you see someone that's not as fortunate as maybe you and I and other people in the audience are at this moment in our time. It's tough because I always fall back to, like I said, Mike the Milkman's 3 keys to the success, right? You want to help everyone. You want to do what you can do, but you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of your family, and you want to take care of your profession. And so there's a balance there with how far do you stretch yourself, as far as resources and helping out in the community. there's definitely a balance there that I still haven't figured out, and I'm working on a daily basis. But I will tell you a quick story, and that was for me earlier in my career. I remember appearing in court on a hearing, and we have a lot of high profile, when I say we, the Orange County legal community has a lot of high profile cases that are in the news literally every month. And I remember leaving a hearing about something and getting in the elevator. And when I walked into the elevator, there was this gentleman that was just crying, kind of wailing. His clothes were wrinkled. He smelled of sweat. It was just he and I taking the elevator down for about 6 or 7 floors in the courthouse. And we have we did have a large homeless encampment around the courthouse, which the lawyers and judges would all be there and support with legal services and food drives. And actually we embraced, them being there and trying to help. And so did the local marshals and sheriff department. But I thought this gentleman was part of that encampment and came in to use the restroom or something like that. Anyway, when the door opened up, there were probably 24 reporters with big cameras and mics. And as he walked out, what it was he was the brother of someone who had been murdered. He had been watching this murder trial for months, sitting in the courtroom. And they finally, an hour earlier, had found the defendant guilty of murdering his sister. And so he was just emotionally distraught. He was like, finally, there's justice. And I remember that to this day, probably 30 years later, just thinking to myself, wow, I read that person, I read that situation completely wrong. My perception was so off base. Don't ever do that again, Mitch. I mean, exactly. It's like pay attention to what's going on and understand that just because my perception of something happens to be green, that doesn't mean the reality isn't actually purple. And that was a great life lesson when it comes to meeting a client for the first time, when it comes to thinking, what is a jury going to do when I say what I'm about ready to say, or when I introduce that piece of evidence, or on social media, when I share that graphic or video, or we share this podcast episode. Just because I think it's going to come across a certain way doesn't mean that's the way it actually is. And that was a good life lesson. I remember back at the ranch, we had a tennis court at the ranch, and Morley Safer, who was a reporter with 60 Minutes. Remember that?
Yeah.
So I was probably about 14, and he was out with his family for a week. And one thing I noticed, Dr. Fred, is my mom and dad always talked to the guest about just personal stuff. They never talked business. They never talked to them. They would just allow the conversation to flow. And I remember I grew up on the tennis courts, and I remember Morley asking my dad if anyone around the ranch could hit the tennis ball. And he goes, yeah, my son will go out and hit with you. And we went out to the tennis court, played a couple of sets. I beat him 6-1, 6 love.
Thanks for the score. I got that.
I was a ranked player, but I didn't realize. So we came back in, and I remember my dad asked Morley, so how did it go out there? He goes, yeah, your kid kicked my ass. That's not the way it's supposed to work. I'm the guest. I'm supposed to win. And my dad looks at me like, what are you doing? Why didn't you just take it easy and I didn't know any better, right? I thought that Morley was talking so much smack as we were walking out to the tennis court that I thought it was my job to just play my hardest and just do what I need to do.
Yeah.
The point is my perception of that 2-hour, tennis experience with him was, I probably, looking back, should have handled it completely different. And
really, Mitch, how would you have done it if you now know what you now know? Would you have actually played left-handed, or what would have happened here?
No. I would have just had some fun. I would have extended the rallies and
I see.
Slowed things down a bit and just had some fun. And by the way, I mean, we did it. We talked every point we talked. But what I learned from that experience was in my profession, I've got other lawyers that we're going up against that talk smack all the time, right? Over the phone and email. It's just part of the posturing that happens. Once again, when you get into court, what I've also noticed is that's oftentimes all it is. It's a lot of talk. They don't actually feel that way. Many of them can't, their bite doesn't back up their bark. And there's really no advantage for me to make them look bad in front of the judge or in front of the jury. And don't get me wrong. I mean, when we walk into the courtroom, it's time to drop gloves and go at it. But like you and I talked about earlier, there's a way to do that in a respectful, professional fashion, as opposed to just being, somebody that's just a complete asshole in the courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been an interesting evolution over the years, Dr. Fred, with what you think something should be and what it actually is. And then will that be the case 10 years from now? Is our perception today actually what it will be 10 years from now? So it's been an interesting learning opportunity.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna thank you for that too, and I'm gonna double back on something you said. See if I can design a question here. I think I have the question, and I'm hoping I can get it out on my first try.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that you aspire to be hard on issues and kind to the people, and like really hold your line on the issues that matter to you, and in the same time to be respectful and kind to the people who are expressing what might be adversarial opinions. So here's my question. These are difficult times. There are difficult times in politics. There are difficult times in management of health and wellness. There's difficult times in listening or not listening to mandates, suggestions, or how do we do that best, or what do we, what do we, all of those things. And the backdrop of this question is, I know, as someone who sees myself as being pretty transformed and pretty evolved, that if you think something different than me, and I know that you think something different than me, and I know that there's at least two ways to think about it, then I can give you room and at least like look at you and think, okay, Mitch, well, you think that and I think this, and now we can go on our merry way. And then there's the other kind, which is if you think something and I deeply think something different than you, then I can look at you and pretend to think, okay, Mitch, that's fine. You think that and you're wrong. And now, and that's fine, because I'm not going to show you that I think you're completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But we can go on our merry way. And then when I walk away, I'll be like, wow, I didn't know Mitch actually was wrong so often. It was like that. Okay. There's that kind. But then there's the third kind. And this is where I really want to get your view on. There are some things that we think we know. This is not like there are more than one opinion on this. This is like, no, really, if you haven't been under a rock the whole time, if you've actually just lived on the planet, if you've actually just been having your eyes open for most of your life, or even part of your life, you would know what I already know about life in this way. And so when I hear someone say something that flies against that, then it isn't even a matter of thinking they're wrong. It's a matter of like near disregard for their entire humanity is where my impulse goes.
Yeah.
And
no, I'm with you.
That's what we're facing these days. We're facing, like, all of a sudden I have friends who have different views on, particularly front and center topics that are presently in the news or presently vogue to either discuss or act on. And all of a sudden we're on different sides of the aisle, and we might not talk about ever again to each other. Like the whole friendship, like even in family, like we honestly might not ever talk to each other, Mitch. That might be it.
I know. This is
because they said one thing about something that I already know they are full of shit about.
Look. So how do we
incorporate that? That's exactly right. That's my question for you.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's a great question. So one thing that I feel like I've gotten a lot better at the older I've become and the longer I've been a human being, and I've worn these different hats of husband, father, trial lawyer, community activist, and everything else, entrepreneur, business owner. I've had a couple of different successful businesses over the years. Is I don't care that much anymore about proving to somebody that I'm right. Mm-hmm. I really am focused on surrounding myself with people who I know, like, and trust, who I respect, who I enjoy being around. Life's too short to be around people that, even if they're right about something, if they rub me the wrong way, I just don't have time for that. There's too many other things going on. So I think for me, Dr. Fred, is I don't take things personally. If we agree to disagree, or if somebody says something, and let me just put it out there since, we're in 2020 and we have an election coming up on November 3rd. We have health and safety, COVID-19 issues. Let's just say somebody talks to me about something that just tells me that they're a 100% racist. Okay. I'm just going to use the R word. Well, I don't want that person in my life. I have no reason to engage or have a dialogue with that person. It has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with character, and it has to do with internal beliefs. And it just runs afoul, so far from my core values, that what I've done, especially on social, is I just eliminate that noise, that static from my life, whether I block, whether I unfollow, whether I just disregard. And that should tell you something, because you do see me engaging with people on social on some of these issues. And those are the ones that I feel like we can have a conversation. We can agree to disagree. And there's another level, probably the third, that third aspect of the question that you're asking me, where it's just not worth my time or my energy. There are some people that believe what they believe for whatever reason, and it doesn't matter to me. It's not my job to fix them. I've got other things to do that I enjoy doing. So I think for me, it comes down to, if I'm not sure who I'm talking to and what their beliefs are. And by the way, I became a trial lawyer because I wanted to take on the bullies in the world. That's why I became a trial lawyer. Okay. So with everything going on today, the last thing I'm going to do is keep my mouth shut. In other words, this is why I became a trial lawyer. Exactly. So I'm kind of in a unique position where I feel like it's okay for me to share what I'm sharing, or engage on social and digital, or in my office with potential clients the way that I do. If I don't like someone, if we have a fundamental disagreement, let's just say on the R word that I just brought up earlier, I'm not going to represent them. Okay. It's my decision. It's my life. I don't need to represent somebody. But what I've noticed is I try to listen better, and I try to ask questions, open-ended questions. What, Dr. Fred, why do you feel that way? What am I missing here? And I genuinely want to know, why do you feel that way on that particular issue? And then I stop talking and I start listening. And while I'm listening, if it's a live video, I'm watching their body language. I'm watching their eyes. I'm watching their hands. I'm looking at all the other things that human beings do when they're communicating, to really see if what's coming out of their lips is congruent or consistent with what I'm observing. And we do this in court all the time, whether we're picking a jury and we're asking them questions because we want a fair and impartial jury. We really want to pay attention to not just what they're saying, but how are they saying it? What's their body language? And what's the body language of the 11 other people sitting in the box? Are they in agreement? Are they nodding? What I've learned to do better over the years is I've tried to ask open-ended questions, listen to the response, active listening, and then I kind of make an internal decision. And that internal decision is there any reason why? Because I've only got so much time in the day. We all do, right? Everybody in the audience listening to this podcast, we all have limited time and attention. So you want to pick and choose who you're associating with, who you're engaging with, who's part of your offline and online community or world. And I think by making an intentional choices, even if it's the wrong choice, it's your choice. And it's like, this is somebody that I want to be around more often. This is somebody who I just don't have any interest in being. I think it's okay to make those decisions, is what I'm getting at. I have a lot of friends that for some reason feel like it's their job to change somebody's mind about something. Whether it's American football versus European soccer, the other football, whether it's Republican or Democrat, whether it's healthcare or no healthcare, whatever the issue is, Black Lives Matter, whatever the issue is, they feel like it's their job to get somebody else and to fix them or change their opinion. Where I think especially on social media, what's really a powerful way to approach those issues is to share facts, to share information, to share a thought process, so that you can build a community of people who you enjoy being around. It's not really that simple, but that's kind of like right now with this interview with you, that's kind of where my mind is at, because I understand I'm not right about a lot of things, but I know in my gut the difference between right and wrong. I know in my gut.
Okay.
You're right. So I've got,
Yes.
it's just my internal compass that I've just learned to trust over the years. So when can I share a couple of political things or not?
Sure.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it's not a big deal, but so when I for example, yesterday in the news, Kamala Harris, she's born in California. She's eligible to be vice president of the United States. When I saw that softball question being lobbed to Donald Trump, and instead of him shutting down that whole birther conversation, he actually threw gasoline on the fire.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact, as a trial lawyer, as somebody that knows the law, understands the Constitution, that there's not even an issue. She's born in the United States. She's qualified to be vice president or president. It's not even an issue.
Right.
When I see Trump do something like that, it's not about politics. It's about right and wrong. It's about leadership or non-leadership. It's about racism and stirring the pot of racism, as opposed to doing what John McCain did years ago when a woman stood up and accused Barack Obama of being a Muslim, and there's nothing wrong with that, but he's not. And McCain said, "No, we're not going to go there, ma'am. That's not true." Mm-hmm. And he shut it down immediately. Well, the leader of the most powerful nation in the world yesterday had the opportunity to shut that conversation down. And obviously, as he's done every single day of his presidency, he did just the opposite. So when I see things like this, I happen to know that there is a right and wrong when it comes to an issue like that. And it's hard for me to be silent. So I went crazy on Twitter last night, and I stand behind every tweet. And I think I'm a better human being for sharing my thoughts and sharing my position on the issue. I think America needs to be educated. We have a problem with people in this country being uninformed or misinformed. They just because you can share something on social media doesn't mean that you know what you're talking about. And as you well know, let's take a step back. As you well know right now, there's so much misinformation out there from both sides of the aisle. Okay. I'm an objective guy. I get it. From different countries, from automated bots, from AI, artificial intelligence bots. I get all that. Mm-hmm. But people are just gobbling this stuff up like it's a fact, and it's not. And I think for me, we need to kind of circle back as a society and circle back to becoming more informed on what the facts are, becoming more informed, at least in my profession, as to what the law is, becoming more informed about the difference between right and wrong. Martin Luther King oftentimes would talk about, saying nothing at all when it's time to stand up, stand tall, and say something as loud as you can. It's not okay. It's not okay to look the other way when corporations are putting profits over people. It's not okay to look the other way when segments of our society are being targeted and harmed or killed because of the color of their skin, as opposed to, the action or quality of their heart. And so these are the kinds of cultural issues that raise a passion in me, where I want to share my thoughts. I want to share my positions. And it can be a challenge sometimes to separate the people from the problem, but I do try to do that, each day.
Beautiful. So thank you for that, and for digging a little bit deeper, as we suggested we were going to do on this call. And I'm going to take us one more round deeper, I think, here with the next question.
Bring it on.
Okay. So we already talked about the R word, and my question here is along the same topic and digging deeper. So this idea of, trusting someone or liking someone or being interested or curious about what they have to say, or keeping them even in your social network, or like spending any volitional time, even any more seconds with that person ever, and like making that decision, okay, you're out of here and I'm not in, I only have one life here and you're not going to be in it, kind of thing. can come from a few different sources. So there's like the overt racist. You're like, okay, no, pal. I mean, I get it. I vetted you. You're an overt racist. You're not changing from that. And I get that you're here. I somehow respect your existence enough not to erase you, and you're out of my life completely. I'm not interested in anything more. I'm not gonna. You said you're not gonna be their attorney. You're not. That's and you're not. Right. And you're gonna drop them off whatever friend that they might be on whatever network they found you at. Okay. There are other things that you talked about openly, which is this notion of facts, FACTS. And we're really looking at, like, where do you get your facts? Like, where is it that you know your truth? Like this, I really resonate with this idea that there's something in our gut that knows when we are being right or wrong. There's something about that I speak to a humanity. When I'm doing something wrong, I know it. When I'm doing something right, I actually know that too. And and it's a gut thing. I have to be able to trust my gut to be able to tell me that, because it's it seems pretty reliable. All right. But in the world of designed algorithms, in the world of AI, in the world of you get the news that you're fit to watch now, all the news that you're fit to listen to, the facts are getting distorted. So what we know as being facts from our news feed is different, literally, from what the next door neighbor might be getting in his or her news feed about the same exact topic. So that the facts, the basics, the foundations, the truths that are creating the truths are actually different and create a different downstream of what facts are. So now he over there thinks that over there about this that I know different facts about, and I'm not sure that we are given the same news. In fact, I know for a fact that I know for a fact that he's given different facts.
Yeah.
And yet I now feel privy, and in fact, I feel there I am. In fact, feeling like it's my obligation almost to disregard and to remove this person from my life, either through forced censorship or volitionally just moving them out from my world as a disempowering source. So here's the next question, which is, what is the moment in time where that person becomes like forever disregardable? Where that person be no longer worth another moment of your listening time? Like, yeah, when is it that your opinion is so solid in what you think, and there's so much adversary in what they're saying, that they're no longer worth paying another second attention?
Sure. Well, I think it's a sliding scale, right? It's not a black and white type of thing, or a red and blue type of thing. You know it when you see it, right? And so here's the thing. If there's somebody on social media who I've never met, I don't know who they are, and they post a comment that is blatantly racist or just some wild conspiracy theory that I don't want people in my feed to see. I don't want to help share or distribute that incorrect conspiracy theory to my audience. I'll just delete it. I'll just delete it and block them. I mean, I don't owe them anything. I don't really care. I don't need to spend time with people like that. I do think there is a difference between facts and non-facts. I think what you were talking about actually has to do with the message that people are hearing and how it's shared, which can be completely different than what the true underlying fact is. So just because a neighbor is listening to watching a different station, and they're absorbing information both emotionally and what they feel is factually, in a factual way, truth be told, that's not the case. They're the recipient of a message. If that message isn't premised upon an original fact, then the message itself is skewed, inaccurate, intentionally misleading. And it's the same thing in court. And so I think the solution is for all of us in the last 4 or 5 minutes of our podcast episode to focus on doing your own due diligence.
Right.
Click around and look at what the objective facts are to an issue, to a problem. This is something as lawyers we're trained to do, and it's something I really feel like it's one of the big benefits of law school is you're trained how to be objective. So I'm the first to admit that there'll be things that are done, and we're talking about politics, that are said, and I don't agree with them. I don't agree with the policy behind it, but I do appreciate the fact that what's being shared is a fact. In other words, it's a fact that this was the vote. We had, 120 senators vote one way and the other, whatever it is, vote the other. That's a fact. That's that's different from somebody meeting me out front and saying, let's just say it's a close vote on an important bill, whether it's in the House or the Senate. Giving that number is a fact. Okay.
Sure. Having someone come out front or be in my office and say, it was a landslide. It wasn't even close. That's not factual. Right. That's an exaggeration of a description of what happened. So it's tough right now, especially on social media, for people to distinguish facts from manipulated fiction. And I certainly don't have the answer. I've got the training to be a little bit more objective than a lot of people. But I also think that if somebody gets it wrong, we can give them a break. It's complicated. It's not always apparent. Sometimes it's just a conversation. Yeah. Asking those questions and you see the light bulb go on and you share a document or you share a video and they're like, okay, I've never seen that before. And so it's interesting. So on social, I am pretty quick to pull the trigger and keep my community clean and as far away from negative influences as possible. Because look, engaging in our social media communities, nobody here is obligated to have anybody else in their community. You can pick and choose who's in your community. There's nothing wrong with that. Just like you pick and choose who you hang out with offline in the real world. And just like you pick and choose your patients and your clients, what you do for a living. So I think giving yourself the power and permission to pick and choose an environment that makes it fun each day to participate and create content and help other people and share good content of other content creators. Content creators can be doctors, lawyers, accountants, donut store owners. Content creators, we're all content creators right now. And so when you find a good, interesting, engaging, unique content creator, you can have fun with it. You can help share their content, share their message on social media. And I think that's what makes it interesting and fun. That's what connects us as human beings and allows us to take a step back to our core values and trust certain people and like certain people. And then when it's all said and done, do business with certain people. That's what makes it fun. And that's why I'm such a big fan of social media. And that's why I'm such a big fan of coming on podcasts like this, Dr. Fred, because long story short, when this is all said and done, half of the people listening to this episode probably aren't going to agree with me, probably aren't going to hire me as their lawyer, probably aren't going to follow me on social. But here's the thing. The other half will. The other half is going to, here's a guy that we actually share a lot of similar values. And they're going to share this episode with their family and with their friends and other people that share similar values. And as long as those values are the right values, they're premised upon what I feel are objective facts, good moral values, and we're all here with empathy, with the intent of being kind, of being humans, and to make each other and the world a better place. That's why I like social media. That's why I like being frank and honest during these episodes. And that's why I still enjoy practicing law and being a human being, even through today. So I really appreciate you having me on the podcast, Dr. Fred. This has been a lot of fun. Yes. Amen. Amen to that. And so Mitch, before we taper off, what is it? Where can people find you, and what should they be looking for if they want to share with you or learn from you or just follow you or anything like that? How can people get in touch with you?
Thank you very much for asking. So I would suggest that you can find me all over social media at Mitch Jackson. But if you go to streaming.lawyer, it's a blog that I set up years ago where I share a lot of my social media videos and posts, and there's a little legal twist to some of this stuff. For example, California law, there's a new California data privacy law that affects anybody doing business in the state of California or outside of the state of California with clients or customers in California if you meet certain criteria. I like sharing tips like that apply to digital and social. So if you guys just bounce over to streaming.lawyer, we can connect there and continue the digital dance.
Far out. Really, really great, Mitch. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to our next conversation. I always look forward to talking to you and learning from you and being with you and sharing with you and really locking arms as we look at what is at least an extraordinarily entertaining world around us. Extraordinarily entertaining.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Fred. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And to our listeners, welcome to humanity. What fun to have an opportunity to interview just spectacular, extraordinary, and normal human beings, like really all of us are. Like you're normal too. Really, you are. What makes you normal is that you're pretty sure you're not normal, and that's what makes you normal. It's been a deep pleasure to be with Mitch Jackson today, and I trust that you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And we'll catch you on the flip side. Mitch, thanks again for being here. It's just been wonderful.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Take care, man. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I just want to say that first. You know, I really enjoyed my conversation with Mitch Jackson today. Isn't he amazing? This is a man who's a very successful trial attorney, but way above all else, he's a human being. This is a man who's a father. He's a partner, he's a husband, he's a community leader, and he's someone who really is out to make a difference and leans on a truth, like a truth of the difference between good and bad, and the difference between right and wrong, and the difference between truth and untruth. So really a spectacular conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Maybe as you were listening to it, you thought of someone in your life, I don't know, maybe even 2 or 3 people who would really love to hear the episode. Go ahead and reach out to them right now and invite them to listen and to subscribe to the Welcome to Humanity podcast. Wouldn't it be great for you to subscribe to this podcast? And if you're going to do that, go ahead and review. As it turns out that reviewing these podcasts and subscribing to these podcasts is the way that we create a greater sense of listeners. If that's something that you're willing to do, we would certainly appreciate it. I would be so grateful for your support. And in order to catch up on past episodes, you'll be able to get those if you subscribe, but you can also head on over to the welcometohumanity.net/podcast and catch up on any of them that you might have missed. So until next time, this is Dr. Fred, and this has been another wonderful episode of the Welcome to Humanity podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day. We'll catch you on the flip side.